We have lots to discuss here in today's video, including some trade talk around the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have a slew of players available for trade as we approach the NHL season. Some updates on the Maple Leafs, maybe making a trade involving a defenseman. Another big update on Connor McDavid and his contract extension. Some more things to consider here as we go through this process and wait for a decision on the top player in the game. Plus, the trade deadline for the upcoming season has also been set, so we'll discuss that. Comments from Lane Hutson kind of clearing the air about comments his dad made about going to possibly play for Team Canada someday, and we've lost another legend of the game. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here today. I want to kick things off with the incredibly sad news that we learned late last night and into today as the people kind of woke up, for the most part, depending on what time you went to bed last night, woke up to some terrible news that we've lost Ken Dryden. He's passed away at the fairly young age of 78. I wasn't aware of this. I'm not sure if he kept it private or maybe I just hadn't seen the news, but apparently he had been battling cancer. But Dryden was a heck of a man, had a heck of a career. He's one of those people that when you look at him, like just a humble giant, if you will, like a big guy, but like he accomplished a lot in his life, not just in the game of hockey, but just in general. I mean, a Hockey Hall of Famer, played 8 years in the NHL, won the Vezina Trophy 5 times, 6 Stanley Cups, like absolutely incredible. And he won the Conn Smythe Trophy before he won the Calder Trophy as Rookie of the Year. Like, that's such a rare feat because he obviously ended up in his first season, he only played a handful of games, so he still had rookie status, took over between the pipes during the playoffs, won the Conn Smythe Trophy, and then the next year goes in for a more complete season as the starting goaltender, and of course claims the Calder Trophy as the league's top rookie. But a short career, accomplished a lot. Of course, represented Canada in the 72 Summit Series against the Russians. I know even Vladislav Tretiak, who was a fierce competitor and rival of his on the Russian side, they became pretty decent friends afterwards and had a pretty decent relationship. I know he's commented on the passing of Dryden here as well. But he's just also went on to do so many other things. Like, obviously he was, quite a student, studying to be a lawyer, went on to be a politician. He wrote a book. He was an author, philanthropist. Also worked for the Leafs for a while as a president for a stretch of time there. So he did so much. Ended up getting honored to be getting the Order of Canada. Dryden was just a man of many talents and did a lot. I know he was also heavily involved with a lot of concussion research here as well. But certainly, just like anybody who had an opportunity to meet him, had nothing but great things to say. Everybody who knew him just absolutely loved this man. So obviously, just a real unfortunate situation that we've lost another legend of the game. Like I said, 78 is still too young in my opinion, but he accomplished a lot in his 78 years on the planet. So certainly rest in peace, Ken Dryden, and certainly want to offer our condolences to anybody who was closely connected, friends, family, etc. I know he had a wife and a few kids, and I believe grandkids as well. So certainly, sad news here today. Some other news we want to get into regarding Lane Hutson. Of course, yesterday we talked about the fact that his father had made an appearance on a podcast and kind of made some comments that I personally weren't crazy about, talking about the fact that, he felt it was not sure what Bill Guerin was thinking, leaving Lane Hutson off of the Olympic orientation camp roster. Talked about the fact that technically the Hutson boys are dual citizens, that, he could play for Canada someday. Theoretically, there is a ability to switch your allegiance that way where you stand if you are a dual citizen. It's quite a process and a lengthy one. No, it would take him 4 years. Like, he wouldn't be able to be eligible to play for an Olympic team until 2030 if he started the process here now. But Lane Hutson has made comments that he is fully committed to USA hockey, and that if he's going to play hockey internationally, it will be for the States. I mean, obviously, like I said, a lot of these kids, they have dual citizenship, and that's great. And it's not that they don't appreciate, because usually they have dual citizenship because one of their parents is from another country or whatever. And we have quite a few between Canada and the U.S. where there's, one Canadian, one American. That happens quite a lot, and it's especially a lot of Canadian athletes. They end up, if you look at where in the world of hockey, the bulk of the teams are in the U.S. They go down there for their career. That's where they end up, meeting their spouse, getting married, have kids. They're still Canadian. Their kids technically are part Canadian as well. But if they grow up in the States, they feel American. And I get that. It'd be no different than, if an American player comes to Canada, ends up having his kids up here, and if they grow up in Canada and they feel Canadian, then that's maybe what they want to identify as. Like, Henrik Sedins and Daniel Sedin from Sweden, lived a long time in Vancouver. Now, one of their boys is representing Canada in soccer now. Like, that's just the way it goes. So I totally understand the sentiment. Lane Hutson grew up in the States, feels American, always played U.S. hockey. So, like, I really thought it was kind of crazy. Like, there was probably no chance he was ever going to try to join Team Canada. And, of course, he would have to be, asked to do that, really, because he's not going to go through the process unless, the team tells him that he's going to have pretty much guaranteed a spot. But for anybody thinking Lane Hutson was going to leave and try to play for Team Canada someday, he's turned down that notion here pretty quick after the comments came out yesterday. Now, another thing that we noticed today and learned as well, of course, we know about the 5 players from the 2018 World Junior team that were on trial and were recently acquitted. The first one of them is back to work now, and it's the one that you probably would have least expected to have been removed from the game the longest. But Alex Formenton, formerly of the Ottawa Senators and formerly playing in the Swiss League, has actually signed a contract now to go back to the Swiss League. I know during the trial we had learned that Alex Formenton had completely left the game of hockey for at least a year. I'm not sure how long. I can't remember how long the timelines were, but he was getting trained to work in construction because he probably thought his hockey career was over, I assume. And, the Swiss League and the team, the league he used to play in, took him back with open arms. Apparently, he was a fan favorite over there from what I've seen and heard. The contract's only very short term. It's only for the first half of the season. They take an international break over there. But there is an option built in that if everything's going well, that they can extend him for the remainder of the season after the holidays as well. So, Alex Formenton back to playing hockey, this time back in Europe where he played before, after he was not signed by the Senators. Well, because I think he was already playing over there when everything first had hit the news about the investigation and everything that was going underway. Now, a bunch of different tidbits around the NHL. We'll start with the Oilers. Mattias Ekholm, another member of the Oilers that's needing a new contract. He's entering the final year of his deal. He spoke to the media, and Edmonton media basically said that he basically made it pretty clear that he really wants to remain at Edmonton. He wants to sign an extension. He wants to continue playing for the Oilers, enjoyed his time there, obviously had a lot of success. Also acknowledged the fact how serious an injury he was dealing with during the playoffs, that he was really not anywhere near 100%, and that he's feeling much better now after a good summer of recovery. But he also acknowledged that as much as he wants to get a contract extension done, that he fully understands that the team right now is kind of focused on other priorities, and that the big boys, as he called it, have to get done first. So clearly referencing the McDavid situation, and once they're settled on that, they'll turn their attention to Ekholm because he is a pretty important member of that team as well. Now, as far as McDavid goes, we haven't learned a whole lot more today. I mean, McDavid's been speaking to the media pretty much almost daily here over the past week during their captain skates, and of course, he did a more formal interview with Ryan Rishaug at TSN. But one thing that I've seen some people bring up on social media today, which made a lot of sense, is you got to imagine that Connor McDavid, not only does he need to decide what he feels is best for his career, because he wants to he doesn't want to just win a Stanley Cup. He wants to have a chance to win a Stanley Cup every year. By the time he retires, I'm sure he envisions himself having a multiple, bunch of Stanley Cups on his resume. This guy is incredibly driven, competitive, and it's burning him alive, I think, internally, that he wants to win so bad. And really, who doesn't want that on your team, right? So there's a lot of internal debate on what's best for him. But I'm sure, as brought up on social media, that he's probably getting a lot of, you could say pressure, probably the right word, from the NHLPA, and maybe even other players, who knows, to kind of set the market, set the tone, take the big money, big term. It's better business for everybody when that happens, right? Because if you think about it, guys like Jack Eichel right now are waiting to see what McDavid signs for. He's not in a rush to get a deal done, because he's hoping McDavid comes in at a crazy number, and it's just going to push everybody else higher. They're going to compare what he's making now to McDavid, and then you're going to okay, well, McDavid just went up from 12 to 17, so we had a $2 million gap before. Now we have a $7 million gap. I want to go to 15, right? So there is pressure from that perspective to kind of tote the line, do what's best for the grand group here of the players and the union as a whole. So I'm sure he's probably conflicted with that, on top of being confident that whatever number he signs for is going to allow the Oilers to not only be competitive today, but for the duration of the contract. Like he said, anybody who knows him knows this is not about the money. He's made a ton of money in his career already. Think about what he's been making on this last contract. Like, the guy's made, I'm sure it's north of $100 million. So, he's got enough money. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve more, because obviously he's, earned the honor of being the best player in the world, but that's not the point. Money doesn't drive him. It's winning. He's already set for life. And, he could be set for life at an even higher level, and he will be, because he's going to get paid quite handsomely no matter what he decides here. But, McDavid is not looking for, making it rain here. He wants to have the best balance to win. And that's tough to decide upon. He has, a lot of things to look at, cap projections for the next 3 or 4 years, which is why we may see a shorter term deal, because it's easier to project what the cap's going to be. It's easier to project what moves the team might be able to make, where they can allot different money in different positions. And, now people are thinking it probably will be, assuming he signs, and most people still feel confident he will, that it's going to be, anywhere from 2 to 4 years, because it's just easier to project and easier for him to kind of predict where the team is at. Like I said, you look around a lot of the supporting cast players that are very, very important. Zach Hyman, Mattias Ekholm, we just talked about, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, they're already into their early 30s, some of them approaching mid-30s. If he looks at this team and says, okay, I don't know about what the team is going to be like in 7 or 8 years, but I have a pretty good idea what it's going to be like in 2 or 3, so maybe it's a short-term extension. But there's definitely some other sides of it that I don't know that a lot of us had really thought about much before, so we'll see where things go on that front. The trade deadline, as I mentioned, has been confirmed today. It will be set for Friday, March the 6th. Will be the next NHL trade deadline for the 25-26 NHL season. So mark that on your calendars. That will be the date that the trades will, for playoff rosters, be March 6th. Now, on the trade front, we look at the Penguins. Dave Pagnotta's report from a couple days ago referenced a lot of names on the Penguins that are very much available as we approach training camp, referencing the fact that they'd love to pull off at least a couple trades, if not more. Some of these guys could be moved throughout the year. And the list doesn't even include Evgeny Malkin, who we know has had a lot of speculation around him for being moved during the season. But he lists Brian Rust, Rickard Rakell, Noel Cherry, Ryan Graves, Tristan Jarry, and, of course, Erik Karlsson. He says that Dubas, the GM of the Penguins, is willing to retain on Karlsson, but he's not sure that he would retain the full 50%. And from what they're hearing around Karlsson, there's definitely interest, but teams that are inquiring and are interested are still, concerned about the contract. And the retention part is a big part of that. So the Penguins could be a very busy team through training camp over the early part of the season as teams kind of reevaluate their needs, reevaluate, anybody who may have suffered an injury and caused a hole in their lineup. But the Penguins are, like I said, for them, I believe this is a race to the bottom. I feel bad for Crosby and Letang. They're still under contract for a little while, but this team wants to be as high as possible in the 2026 NHL draft. And as I mentioned before, I've got a gut feeling that they win the draft lottery and are one of the bottom teams in the NHL this year. I don't think they would be great even with some of these players on it, but they're going to be even weaker, I think, after they trade some of these guys. There's also talk, too, about the Leafs. I've seen more reports today suggesting that we heard about the Leafs maybe trading a defenseman, possibly for another puck-moving defenseman, but I've seen another take on that saying that it might make more sense for them to trade a defensive-style defenseman for a forward. If they want to add a puck-moving defenseman, there is a guy like Matt Grzelcyk on the market who they could sign as a free agent and not have to give up anything. Considering how long he's been on the market looking for work as a UFA, I would think they wouldn't have to pay too much for his services. So that might be an option to go to add Grzelcyk as a puck mover. And then, of course, it seems to be kind of Benoit or Carlo would be the guys that would go. Many believe that Tanev, they're not going to move Tanev. Look how hard they worked to get him and to create him on the contract. And I don't think they're going to move McCabe either. So to me, it's going to be Carlo or Benoit. And I would think Carlo, who they just got, a big right shot guy, he might have more value, but I don't know. I'm not sure I'd really want to move him, but I understand the change up the dynamic. Of course, they're still kind of reevaluating the forward group, looking at, no Mitch Marner there on the right side of Austin Matthews. Can Michelli cover, a lot of that playmaking, and can they do this by committee to kind of be just as offensive as they were before? It's going to be challenging. And if they trade for a forward by moving a defenseman, it just might make a lot of sense to try and change that dynamic up. But that is a speculation around the Leafs right now. Of course, we know they want to move Kampf and Yarncroke, and their cap is a little bit jammed up here and tight until they find a way to do that. So that being creative in that sense is going to partly be what helps them pull this out, but it's not going to be easy to do. There's really no... I haven't heard names on who they could target for a forward if they do move a guy like Carlo, but certainly... I would suggest somebody who could ideally play in the top 6 and be a decent scoring winger, and maybe even a center. I don't think they'd be opposed to getting another center as well. That way they have the option of being a little deeper down the middle, or if they wanted to move Tavares to the wing, but they don't need a center. I think they're okay center-wise between Matthews, Tavares, and Nick Waugh, who came over from Vegas. So they, and then have Lawton who can be a center. I think they're okay. It's just it really boils down to if they want to continue Tavares to be at that position, or do they want to eventually move him to the wing. But I'm not sure what the plan is with him. They probably have to easier time going the route of a scoring winger for the time being. So let me know your thoughts on today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.